Yeah, yeah, here we are.
Are we back?
We are indeed
All
back.
right, we're back to another edition
Hey.
to Live Feed Reads with your host, Paul Reed.
Yep.
And this goes out to Brian Staley. My name is now correct at the bottom.
Yeah.
And Jason Crawford, my Ed McMahon.
What's up? What's up?
All righty. Welcome back. I have the original Read and Read shirt from
Yeah.
the commercial, the softball commercial. Ryan told me I need to get rid of it. I said never. And so that's where we left it. All
That's awesome.
right. So last week or the week before, we were talking about one of Jason's
Yeah,
friends
true. Yeah.
who was at fault in an accident and had some questions on how the insurance company was negotiating the claim
Mm-hmm.
and what happened if they couldn't settle it and if she needed a lawyer and things of that nature.
Right.
Quite simply, here's how it works. If you're at fault in an accident and you have bodily injury liability coverage, and if you don't have bodily injury liability coverage, as soon as you click leave this meeting or whatever you want to call it, call up your insurance company and get bodily injury liability coverage.
Mm-hmm.
It protects you in case you're involved in a crash and you're at fault. Get as much as you can afford. It comes in $10,000 increments, 25,000, 50, 100, and so forth. I recommend at least 25. Uh, Minimum, but you need 100 or more.
Yeah,
But
because it goes
that
fast.
$10,000, the 10,000, is not very much, but it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
So if all you can afford is 10,000, fine, get it, but the more the merrier.
Sure.
What happens is simply this. Let's just say I'm at fault, and Jason is the person that I hurt
Oh.
with my car. Jason hires a lawyer, read and read, so to speak, and has
Of
medical
course.
care and treatment and things of that nature. And at some point, the lawyer, read and read, is going to send what we call a demand letter. It's like an offer to settle to the insurance company. Insurance company will look at the records, bills, photographs of the accident, and so forth, and decide how much they want to pay.
Mm-hmm.
If during that process the case is settled, Jason says, yeah, that's enough, that's sufficient, or it's the policy limits, or whatever the reason. If
Right.
the case
Okay.
settles, Jason gets his money, and the insurance companies get me a release. A release just means, okay, Paul, buying through his insurance company, paid Jason, and Jason can no longer try to claim monies from Paul from the date of the settlement moving forward, no matter what happens to Jason. So that's
Okay.
that's how it works. Now, let's just say for whatever reason, insurance company says Jason's asking for too much money and we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to offer that.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen is simply this. Paul's going to get sued because in the state of Florida, we have what's called a non-joinder statute, meaning Jason can't sue my insurance company directly. He has to sue me. And so
Okay.
that's how it works. Jason, his lawyer, doesn't really care about getting money from me. They want the money from my insurance policy. But again, under the non-joinder statute, Jason has to sue Paul Reed for causing the accident.
Okay.
All right, now does Paul Reed need to run out and get a lawyer? Because what happens is Paul Reed's insurance company sends him a letter and says, "Hey, we weren't able to settle with Jason. He wants whatever, and so you may, and we think you're going to get sued, so you may want to go out and get a lawyer."
Right.
Well, do I have to? Absolutely not. My insurance policy provides me with a lawyer, meaning I have Mercury or Progressive or State Farm or Allstate. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. All of them state in there, in case you're sued, we will pay for a lawyer. That's
Okay.
how it works. And they do. A lot of them have, it's called in-house counsel, meaning Geico has its own lawyers. Allstate has its own lawyers that actually are employees of theirs. And then there are lawyers at private firms. They do not work for the insurance company. They are a private firm like Reed and Reed or whomever, and they will hire them.
So I have a
So
question about that.
they usually hire those firms on bigger cases. So the smaller cases are something they think that there's enough insurance to cover it, no matter what happens in the litigation. They usually use their in-house counsel.
Yeah.
Bigger cases where they think it's possible that there may be an issue where the verdict or the judgment entered, if it can't be settled before trial, is larger than the policy, then they usually will farm it out to another firm.
Yeah.
What was your question?
So with that lawyer, is there like a bit of a conflict of interest? So they're not necessarily.
Hey, good question. And we've been arguing that forever, to be quite honest. And the Supreme Court of the state of Florida back when says, well, you have to kind of send them a letter, let them know that they're employees for Geico, State Farm, Allstate, that you have the right to have your own lawyer and this, that, and the other, and that'll cover it. Of course, it's a conflict of interest. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because
if I have a $10,000 insurance policy and somebody offers to settle, to accept that, right? And you're my lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Jason's money. It's not my money. It's Geico, State Farm, or Allstate's money. I want you to take it, and that way I don't have to worry about getting sued or possibly owing money if a jury comes back and awards more money than my policy. I have that $10,000 policy. I break somebody's leg.
They're like, oh, $90,000.
More than $10,000.
Yeah, right.
But for whatever reason, insurance company, I don't know, doesn't want to pay it. Well, that's not in my best interest. If you're my lawyer and you know that, hey, look, it's possible that, Reed could get hit for it's called an excess judgment, meaning, an amount more than his insurance. Well, my lawyer should say, let's just pay it. Let's pay it. We don't have to worry about it. But if you work for the insurance company, which they do, they don't have a say.
Yeah, or what if something complicated happens?
In my opinion, there's a total conflict of interest.
Yeah. What if something complicated happens? Like, say, like your kid was driving and he didn't know, he just started delivering pizzas. He didn't know that he had to notify his insurance.
Well, I had that case yesterday. If you're a delivery driver for pizzas, Publix, Uber, you name it.
Yeah.
Unless you specifically buy a commercial policy, you're not covered under your private policy. And people don't know that. Or they just risk it and think I'm not going to get in a crash. But understand this, not only are you not covered for the bodily injury, let's just say you're driving a brand new car. Your comp and collision ain't going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So your $40,000 or $30,000 or your $20,000 or whatever amount you think you have and you're at fault and your car's totaled, you're still going to have a loan, but you ain't going to have a car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that is messed up.
If you're out there driving, well, and I'll give you an example. We literally settled a case for $1 million last year where we thought it was a girl on a scooter. We thought that the driver only had $10,000. And I said, look, client, I'm not gonna take any fees on $10,000. You don't need me. Call the insurance company. They'll send you the money, and so forth. Well, like a day or two later, out of nowhere, the adjuster for this kid's insurance company says, oh, by the way, he was delivering pizzas. Cha-ching.
Wow.
Now the pizza company is on the hook.
Yeah.
We didn't get the $10,000 from his company, from him, because again, he was delivering pizzas. He didn't have that commercial policy. But I didn't care about his $10,000. We literally got $1 million. And it looked like the girl was going to be screwed. So yeah, most people do not purchase that additional coverage.
Yeah. And in the case, so the question about
people or food.
Yeah, and the question about conflict of interest was like, wouldn't say the insurance company's lawyer at that point be going, hey, we should drop this client?
Well, they're not going to give you a lawyer. If they find out you're delivering pizzas, driving for Uber, Lyft, Publix, Instacart, you're going to get a letter and say, oh, by the way, you're not covered. We're denying coverage. So you ain't getting a lawyer.
But even if the lawyer's already acting with them, like, wouldn't they at that point just be like, yeah,
no, they'll bail. You're not getting a lawyer.
Well, that's so shitty.
Well, the thought process is this. If you're out there delivering on a daily basis, you're driving way more than the average person.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're more apt to get in an accident because you're driving so much more.
There's more risk.
That's a risk that we as an insurance company need to be aware of, because if you're going to drive 3, 4, 5 times as much as a normal person, and you're 5 times more liable to get in a crash, we're going to charge you more for that.
But honestly,
That's
like
why
outside of this conversation, I probably would have made the same mistake.
they
Because I would have been like, oh crap, I didn't know I had to do
They
that.
call and say, yeah, this is why you're out of luck. Yeah.
Oh, where's the education on that?
You just got it.
Wait, right here. Jeez,
right.
dude.
Now let's go to a current event, a current case. And I don't know if you guys know the names of it, but it's basically Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. Basically, it's the Mississippi case that the Supreme Court heard on either Tuesday or Wednesday that has to do with abortion. And basically, Mississippi saying that you cannot have an abortion after 15 weeks. So they're really moving the viability from about 23 or 22 or 23 weeks down to 15 weeks. There's, of course, the Texas law that is down to like an hour and a half after sex. But either way, this is the 15 weeks, and you say, okay, well, what might happen? Well, remember, you've got 6 judges appointed by Republican presidents, and you have 3 judges appointed by Democrat presidents. Okay, so you got that. Of course, the Republicans are more pro-life by platform, and the Democrats are more pro-choice by platform. So you got that dichotomy. What I find disturbing, and so does what's her name, Meyer, and I'll get to that, who's a Democrat appointed judge, is in 1973, we all know that the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade, which basically under the 14th Amendment gave women the right to have an abortion. Okay, that's been the law of the land for 50 years. All right, and other Supreme Courts and federal judges at the appellate level and at the district level have all basically upheld that right under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Well, Mississippi's argument is, and all of the arguments have been in the last 50 years, there's nowhere in the Constitution that specifically states you have the right to an abortion. So it's kind of been a Supreme Court created doctrine that says under the 14th Amendment, which, you have the right to be secure in your places, and, you have certain inalienable rights and all that kind of stuff under the 14th Amendment. But basically under the 14th Amendment, you have that right. So the question is, was that case back in 73 decided rightly or wrongly? Should we overturn in its entirety Roe versus Wade, or should we uphold it as is and shoot down the Mississippi law that says 15 weeks? Those are all the questions. Now here's how it kind of went per judge.
Can I ask another question?
Hold on a second.
Okay. Yeah. Go.
You got Clarence Thomas. He was appointed. He was appointed by Republicans way back when. He has always thought that Roe versus Wade has no place in jurisprudence. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows for it, and therefore he would just flat out overturn it. Period.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's your number one of the 3. Number 2 is Stephen Breyer, old man, appointed by Clinton. He would uphold Roe versus Wade as it is, and he would also shoot down the Mississippi's 15 weeks. You've got Judge. The last of the 3 is Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She would also uphold the Roe versus Wade and shoot down the Mississippi law, but she makes the argument that I believe to be true, and actually so does Judge Roberts, the Chief Justice. She basically says this: if Roe versus Wade is overturned, will this institution survive the stench that overturning it will create in the public perception that the Constitution and its readings are just political acts? So what she's saying is, Donald Trump appointed 3 conservative justices, Barrett, Gorsuch, and the other one, Kavanaugh. if you overturn Roe versus Wade after 50 years of a lot of other justices ruling that it's constitutional, it's ingrained in the 14th Amendment, it's called precedent, or stare decisis, meaning things that have already been decided. If you overturn that, then the country is going to simply think the Supreme Court is now just another political body. And in this case, they're going to think it's a Republican political body because it's 6-3, and they overturned a decision, a landmark decision that has been upheld for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, that's what came to my mind as well. Now, I'm not a Supreme Court justice, but I'm a lawyer that says, look,
Sure.
This has been the law for 50 years. We're in the most politically charged climate we've ever been in. There was a big stink about putting some of these justices on because they don't want it to be a political body. And if you throw this out, I think it's going to severely damage the Supreme Court and the justice system. I think we're already tinkering on, not a whole lot of faith with the system and
but are they
case and this, that, and the other. So, people still, believe it or not, people still want to believe, regardless of politics and what happens at the federal level and that you can go in and get your day in court and it'll be fair. And I still
then that needs to be the belief.
You may not like what happens.
Right.
There are people that don't like that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty.
Right.
Those same people, believe it or not, are the ones that think Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty and should have been. So it's like, either way, everyone wants their day in court and to be judged by their peers. Or
trust in the court is important.
Or otherwise. And I still think that people think you can get that. Now, they may not like the outcome of a specific case, but either way, at least, you have your day in court. Now, let's go on and talk about the other justices and why.
But before we do that, can I ask a question real quick?
Yep.
Which is it in fact trying to overturn the Roe v. Wade, or is it trying to add clarification to win abortions viable?
There were arguments made for the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Okay.
That's the issue. And then whether they do that or limit it to the Mississippi 15 weeks. But it doesn't look good because let me see. Where was it?
Because everything I'm finding was talking about the limitation of the 15 weeks. I wasn't aware of the attempt to overturn.
Oh, no, that's the goal.
Completely overturn. Okay.
Overturn. And here's what's going on. So Justice Kavanaugh, basically, he's a conservative, and I don't know what he's going to do, but he says, he talked about precedent and stare decisis, meaning should we follow what the other justices did before this, or if we feel that the case was wrongly decided 50 years ago, should we continue to follow it even though we think it was wrongly decided?
Okay.
So he's ready, willing, and able to say, I know what stare decisis is, meaning this is what's happened in the past. I know there are cases, precedent of what's happened, but if we think it was wrongly decided, can we just throw it out? And he tended to say yes, anybody with a caveat. Yes, we can, but he went further and said, because I don't think the 9 of us, the Supreme Court, are just 9 people in America should be the ones deciding such an important issue. You have elected officials who can decide this issue, whether it be the Congress, the federal government, whether it be state legislature, the Supreme Court of those states, or otherwise. Now, of course, Sotomayor says, look, we oftentimes overturn state decisions, whether it be a state Supreme Court, a state legislative body, or otherwise, because their decision does not meet the standards of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a crap argument.
I was going to say that's.
But he made it. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. But that's why the Supreme Court's there, to be honest, is because if states, either their legislative body, their elected officials, their state Supreme Courts, if they make, which is what is argued here, if they make these laws that violate the Constitution, that's what the Supreme Court does. So that was kind of a crap argument, but that's what he said. And it's interesting because he said, well, look, the death penalty, states can decide whether or not they have a death penalty or don't have a death penalty.
Right.
The federal government or the federal Constitution allows for it, but they don't have to do it. Well, that's again a stupid argument because they're the pro.
But it's pretty similar, right?
Because it's not.
Because if the Supreme Court says Roe v. Wade allows, but other ones disallow, is that not?
Well, that's the argument. They're not saying that. They're saying on the Roe v. Wade, they'd be saying this. Right now, it's the Constitution allows it.
Right.
So the state can't disallow it. If in death penalty, they're saying the Constitution allows it, but the state can disallow it.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, that's different than if the Supreme Court says the federal Constitution does not allow it. Here's what happens. That doesn't mean abortions are now illegal. It just means states can also say you can't have an abortion, but a state can say, yes, you can. So the effect will be, honestly, those red states will basically, meaning the ones controlled by the conservative Republican parties, will disallow or do away with abortion by and large.
Essentially.
And the blue states won't. So the difference in the death penalty is you can, it's allowed under the federal Constitution, but under the state, you can say, we're not doing it. So it's really a flip-flop. And again, it wasn't a good argument.
It's not great. It's kind of muddy in the water.
Roberts is with Sotomayor. Roberts knows, and he's the Chief Justice. He knows that, in my opinion, that if they overturn Roe versus Wade, it's going to leave a stain on the Supreme Court. They may not be able to survive it. Now, having said that.
Does that mean that you make decisions based on optics, though? Or like what?
Look, I'm just telling you how it is. Because here's an example. And the big case that everyone cited was Plessy versus Ferguson. Back in 1886, I believe it was, there was a landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court having to do with racial segregation. And what they said was, well, as long as the facilities are equal, it's okay. And that's where, when you're watching TV or otherwise, you'll see the two bathrooms. One said, white, and one said colored or whatever.
Right.
So the ruling was, as long as the facilities are equal, then it's okay. That went on for, 50, 60, 70 years until 1954, when there was the Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. That's where this had to do with segregation in schools. You could have a black school and a white school. And they said, no, that's unconstitutional. And what Chief Justice Warren said, by definition, is separate facilities are always unequal. That was his quote. And so there was 70 years of precedent, 70 years of stare decisis, and the Supreme Court flipped the script. So there is, to say that this Supreme Court won't do it just because it's been the law of the land for 50 years. There have been, and there are numerous other cases where one court, back in the day held one way and another court held another. So you can't just hold your breath that, well, it's been like that for 50 years. It's been like that for 50 years. They're not going to change it.
On a macro scale, though, that's the way society moves, inch by inch, piece by piece, right? Is that it in these conversations, or in the law can't have a conversation with itself. So it's really people. It's really people arguing out, how best to move forward. And it's just so hard to get people to make stark changes immediately and everyone be on board. So I think things just happen gradually. Change happens gradually over time.
Well, yes and no. This really, in my opinion, it's people telling women what they can and can't do with their own bodies. That's the pro-choice side. It's like my body, my choice.
Sure.
Just that simple.
Yeah.
And so there's always been this underlying theme throughout history as to whether certain groups of people get treated the same as others.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
in my
for sure.
opinion, if you tried to tell you and I, as men, look at 40 or 50 years old, you have to have a vasectomy because of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
We'd burn the town down.
Well, isn't that the same issue with the vaccine? Not to get, did I say, I can't,
thing, yeah,
I don't know if I can say that word without getting censored.
Telling people what you have to do it does not go well. And so that's, and women don't like it. Some do.
I don't think anybody really likes it.
There are some women that, look, my body, my choice, and I can respect that.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, for sure.
But back to these justices, Justice Amy Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
What an idiot. She says, well, there are safe haven laws. And you know what that is, where you have a 2 or 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, you can take it to the police station or the fire station, drop the child off, no questions asked, you can't be prosecuted, and then they'll find a place for that child to live. You're aware of that?
No.
Okay.
That's really messed up.
Well, there is, but it's safe haven where you can take your child to the fire department right up the street, drop it off, and leave and say, I can't raise this kid. No questions asked. You can't be criminally charged.
In every state, that's a federal. Bro, this is news to me. Headlines read, Jason Crawford learned something today.
Of course, she's Catholic, so she says, well, you can have the baby and then just drop it off at the fire station. Come on, man.
Okay.
As Chris Berman says, come on, man. But that was the argument she made.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
Well,
there's a lot of arguments that can be made either way, really, truly.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, and I think that's the point of.
Oh, well, here's another one. Alito, a Bush appointment, his quote was, and again, the reason I'm saying this is it ain't looking good for Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
The fetus has an interest in having life.
So that's kind of where I think I'm like, well, what, like when you say a woman's body is her choice, like which woman's body, if you look at it that way, like if the woman's giving birth to a female, like.
Well, I ain't making the arguments. I am not here to argue for or against.
No.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's not what this is.
The whole conversation is that's what's been going on the last week. And here's how the justices seem to be leaning, and we'll see what happens. I got news for you. Again, some of them easy. Clarence Thomas, boom. Sotomayor over this way, Meyer this way. So it's really going to be. I think Amy Coney Barrett. She's Catholic. She's been anti-abortion. So you really got Kavanaugh, Roberts, and Gorsh, and I just don't know. I don't know if Roberts.
What bothers me about all this? What bothers me about all this is that we're not rooting for sports teams. Like, have the discussions. Like, talk about the difficult parts of it, and rule on it. But people shouldn't be cheering like, oh, the left won a victory or the right won a victory. Like, this is not what that shit's about. Like, this is about deciding, like, possibilities, like what's possible, what the choices, access to care, all of those kinds of things. These are choices about.
Well, guess what, Junior? There's just on this one.
It's like we're rooting for football teams.
Where we're at in this country.
Yeah.
Anymore, everything's all or nothing. There's no middle ground. Anymore. It's just all or nothing. Yes, no here, and so
we stupidly pick sides based off teams. I
honestly hope the Supreme Court will surprise me, but given the verbiage and the questions that were asked during the 2 or 3 hour hearing, I'm not holding my breath. But anyway, that's it. So we talked about the duty to defend. We talked a little bit about the Mississippi law.
We looked at the minefield of abortion. We were like, we can step on all of those.
Other things you didn't know about, safe havens and so forth.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day out. The
is.
Buccaneers play Sunday, but they're without a couple of players because they falsified their COVID cards. How lovely is that? Unbelievable.
There you go.
Well, that's it.
All right.
My name is correct on the screen.
That's a victory. Go.
And we're going to get out of here.
All
I
right.
love everybody. Jason, we'll see you. And
See ya.
that's it for us.
Sounds good.